Morning and Prayer. Shalom. It's today is December 9th, Parshat Vayishlach, December 9th, 2024. Okay, we have a few years of Parsha classes here. And Parsha Vayishlach. Let's start out by I'm going to focus on the reconciliation scene. It is the probably the scene prior to the reconciliation scene between Jacob and Esau. You recall, of course, that Jacob has uh, run away from his brother. Brother was contemplating murdering him, killing him, really, for having stolen his birthright. Uh, while Jacob is with Lavan in Haran, he marries his two daughters. We went through that last week. And now he's on his way back. It's 20 years. And with 20 years, things uh, are either they they become framed in a different way, resentments grow, or there things change, or maybe not change. And so that's how I'm starting this, because I'm thinking that the span of time puts things in a different perspective, obviously. And at the very least, they could do, the span of time can do things to do two things. At the very least, they can make things worse, or they can make things better, or forget, or people could get over this. Um, and so I'm starting out by saying that there's no one way of looking at reconciliation. Um, and I think this is true in life. And it's true in politics. It's true in lots and lots in sport and rivalries, etc. It almost seems that it's rare that rivals can establish a better relationship between the two of them, between them, um, and uh, you know, they may be able to, at the very least, something changes. At the very most, you have, other kinds of outcomes. I'm thinking about, you know, in American history, the rivalry between Thomas Jefferson and Adams, right? John Adams. They were rivals, but they became correspondents and great friends after their rivalry, such to the point that they both died on the same day, and um, that itself is a great moment. And you know um, the extent to which enemies become friends. I think of, I've shown it before, the Begin and Sadat. Um, Begin at least said he considered Sadat a friend. When Sadat was assassinated, Begin attended his funeral, and clearly, when Sadat was assassinated, Begin was quite remorseful. He was, and when you think about that scene of the two of them, as enemies now, making peace. So there is a reconciliation, but the the process of reconciliation consisted of, and to a certain extent, to this very day, consists of a kind of trust but verify system. Um, so one theme that we have here is this theme of trust and verify, or I guess the best Hebrew terming for it is kabdehu v'chashdehu. Uh, Kabdehu means respect, but also suspect. Chashad is suspect, kabed is respect. So the best translation I could do is uh, respect and suspect. And I'm thinking of Rabbi Hilsenrad Zichrono Livracha, because he always used to say that. It was one of his favorite expressions. I think it was a kind of, theme in his life, in a sense. he always had a kind of, you always have to be, respectful, but have a little bit of, um, uh, not a little bit, just be 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 resolute at the same time. Um, and so this ambiguity, or what my favorite scholar du jour is calling in Hebrew, the word is, I'm going to look it up again just a second. It is amimut, 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 ein mem yud mem vav tav, which I looked up is opacity, meaning vague.
Amit is a friend. Amit
Amit,
is a friend.
it's
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 the ein.
right. I so, but it's not a meat. It's not a meat. It's a meme. A meme. It's a
Amimut. Oh,
moat.
not too clear, not too.
Exactly. So this is the theme is it's not too clear. Okay. Now you might think it's clear. I've always read this story thinking that there's really one way to read the story, but as usual, there's really more than one way to read the story, and let's go into it, and we will look carefully at it right now. Here we go. So here we go. So I'll read it in Hebrew. You know what? I'll put the focus on here so it's nice and clear for everybody. View focus. Boom. Nice. Okay. Vayishlach Yaakov malachim lefanav. That's how our parsha starts. Jacob sent messengers ahead of him. Ele Savachiv, to Esau his brother. Arza Seir, Sede Edom, to the land of Seir in the territory of Edom. I'm going to stop here for a second, just mark the geography, which is that Jacob is somewhere, on the other side of the Jordan. Um, he is coming through, and his brother is in a kind of region not too far, but it's a region that probably asserts itself also over the land where he's going. In other words, the two are on a kind of track to encountering each other. He's trying to anticipate his brother's movement. So he sends messengers, malachim, and of course, malachim has many, many different meanings. We saw malachim at the beginning of last week's parsha, although they were angels, heavenly messengers going up and down the sulam. By Yitzavotam lemor, he charged them, saying, Ko tomrun, thus say, Ladoni Esav, to my lord, to Esav. Avdecha Yaakov im Lavan, I'm sorry, Ko amar Avdecha Yaakov, im Lavan garti, vaychar adata. I'm going to do this, line by line, and then we'll get to the, some general meaning. So notice how the text starts with Vayishlach Yaakov. This is the narrator. The narrator saying Jacob sent messengers to his brother. Okay, and it's using the word brother because that's what Esav is. Okay, but when Jacob charges his messengers, he says to them, "Ladoni Esav." So to the messengers, this translation is Kotomrun, thus say. Now, I mean, we write a memo today. In the way we write a memo, we would go, memo to, and we'd have the address, Mr. So and so. Okay, so it's a kind of memo here. Here, the translation is "Thus say to my lord to Esav," but I would put the semicolon or the colon there and say Kotomru Ladonile Esav, and I would put another colon here. Okay, to my lord Esav. Okay, and this we should make into a capital in one translation. To my lord, to Esav. In other words, I'm making an official missive to you with this very honorable greeting. My lord, Esav. Koamar, Avdecha, Yaakov. Thus says your servant, Jacob, Im Lavan Garti v'achar arata. So obviously, what we're identifying here is a level of subservience. What Jacob is saying to Esau is, I am your servant, you are my Lord. Okay? uh, which is very interesting. It's a very interesting. It's not a way the brother usually talks to an equal. It's already Jacob putting himself in this low echelon and trying to not humiliate himself, but to humble himself and to, placate his brother, appeal to his brother's honor, appeal to his brother's status, precisely because he realizes that he is in, he's got to do that. he there's a reason why he went to Lavan, uh, and so vim Lavan garti vaychar arata. I have tarried until now, which is a very interesting way of saying something. It's like, you know, I've taken my time. I've it's it's been a while. Vayili shor v'chamor, tzon ve'eved v'shivcha. I have now ox and donkey, sheep and servant and maid have become mine. Vayishlecha la'agid ladoni limso chen be'enecha. So I've sent to tell my Lord to find favor in your eyes. Okay, so he has a great mission here. Limso chen be'enecha. All right. Now, what is going on here? You know what's going on here? He he has to tread very, very carefully, um, because he knows that Esav wants to exact a price from him. At least that's how it was left. When Jacob left, um, things were unsettled, and lots of things did not happen in the 20 years. One of them, which remains a real puzzle. Rebecca said, I will send for you. She doesn't send for him. There's no communication that we know of between Rebecca, Isaac, and Jacob in the intervening years. Uh, and there is an assumption here that Esav knows where he went. And that assumption, I think, is reasonable because Esav is at home and Jacob is no longer there. Susie, you have a question. Go ahead.
So he says, I Jacob at this point has a lot of stuff,
Yes.
and and he acts as though he's got just like the bare minimum, and he doesn't say anything about having a family.
Jacob doesn't, right. He doesn't say anything about having a family yet. Okay. Um, and I think the reason for that is because he wants to impress Esav with his wealth, or at least he wants to, you know, the thing that is known by all the characters in the story is that when Jacob left, he left empty-handed. He left with nothing. He took nothing with him. Um, and this is what's known to the characters, and it's known to us as the observant audience. Okay, and very interestingly, he presents his acquisitions there as if to say, as if to say, look, I've lived 20 years abroad and I invested well. I bought Bitcoin and now it's worth $100,000.
He makes it sound like he doesn't have very much. I mean,
No,
he
that's that. On the contrary, I have a lot. I think I will go back to the text here. Okay, on the contrary, whoops, a daisy. Sorry. Uh, uh, close that. Yeah. The on the contrary, uh, it's the the ox, shor v'chamor tzom evesh v'shicha, that ought to tell us what he's got. Here we go. Okay, so vayihili shor v'chamor tzon ve'eved v'shicha. Look, you don't get servants if you don't become wealthy and on some level. All of these things really are indicators of
So you're
wealth.
saying Eved is not really a singular.
Eved is this is plural, like a collective plural. Eved v'shivcha. I have a whole retinue of things now.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So what we have is this kind of the telegram to Esav with this information. Uh, you're right. It doesn't say I have a family here. I just have lots of men servants, maid servants, sheep, flock, etc. The messengers returned, Vayeshuva malachim el Yaakov lemor, saying, Banu el achicha el Esav. We came to your brother, to Esav, v'gam holech likratcha, and he's coming to you. V'arba meot ishimo, and 400 men are with him. Okay, that's our ambiguity moment. Okay, so on the one hand, we have this idea, you know, that the two are very, very different. Uh, and I say this very often when we read this parsha, which is the Torah could not have been clearer in terms of establishing the contrast between the two brothers. One establishes a family. Jacob has now 11 sons and one daughter, and one is a gang leader. Okay, he is he's got a horde of 400 men here. Now 400 is the size of a garrison. 400 occurs in other places. It's a military force basically. Susie, you had another question there, or what was it?
Yeah, I said so. So he's told that Esau is coming to you. Is that because the servants said, "Oh, Jacob's on the way," so he says, "Okay, I'm going to go out to meet him," or did somehow? I mean, it almost sounds like Esau knew that Jacob was in the neighborhood and he's going out to meet him.
Right. So
But how would he have known that he's in the neighborhood?
exactly. These are all, unanswerable questions based on what we have in the text. So your guess is as good as mine. Your midrash is as good as mine on this. I would say that part of the assumption in reading these texts is that there's some kind of communication around, and this we'll see this in Vayeshev in a couple of weeks. With the motif of the traders. The traders are the people that bring information, right? They're not only people that sell and buy goods from everyone and bring from Egypt to Mesopotamia, but they also deliver information as peddlers, often did on their circuit. So the fact that there's information and the fact that there's some kind of foreshadowing. I mean, it's not only the storyteller doing this, but it relates to the currency that we all live with, which is, I mean, I just had this experience recently where someone says hello to you. They give you regards, okay? I met someone yesterday, and he said he was going to Israel and he's going to see a certain person. And I said, "Oh, I haven't spoken to that person. Please give that person my regards." I said, and in saying that, I always say, like, what's the matter with you? Can't you just pick up the phone? Can't you send an email? Can't you do? Why is it that we have to rely on that? And the answer is because that's the way we do it. That's the way we communicate. We want to deliver news with other people who are traveling. Um, and so, and that it's probably kind of woven into our DNA at this point, the way we communicate. So news goes between people, and this would be interesting news to Esav, that he knows that Jacob is in the vicinity. Now, so if you're Esav and you get this news, what goes through your mind? So you have many feelings. You have the conflicted feelings of fraternity, sibling, memory, rivalry, right? You have a memory of pain, and yet you have a memory of also what's been lost to you. And that's where it gets really complicated. Okay, we've said this many times. I really believe that this is one of the great themes of Genesis, perhaps of the whole Bible, which is, this theme of fraternity, this theme of siblinghood, is already from the beginning. Cain and Abel, of course, with Cain's killing of Abel, and then if you kind of dial down to the sons of Noah, Shem, Ham, and Yafet, and it's not that there's a rivalry between them, but it's clear that one of them, Ham, acts differently from the others. Okay, especially when it comes to Noah and Noah's inebriation. And then you go down 10 generations and you have Abraham, Abraham who is the son of Terach, Abraham, Haran, and Nachor, three brothers, one of whom dies, Haran, and Abraham and Nachor are brothers. They both live in different vicinities and different territories. And I think that one of the unspoken stories of the Bible of Genesis is that it's not that there's a rivalry between the two of them, but there's a difference between Abraham and Nahor, resulting in Abraham's migration, or resulting from Abraham's migration, and Nahor remaining in his vicinity, and that this the two brothers, Abraham and Nahor, find a kind of reconciliation and bonding in the marriage of their children and grandchildren, Isaac marrying Rebekah and Rachel, Leah marrying Jacob. So the family bond between Abraham and Nahor is solidified by generations, Rebekah and Isaac and Rachel, Leah and Jacob. Now we move to Jacob and Esau, and so you know it's like this tension, because it was tension that existed between all of the sibling pairs beforehand, is now here. And so if we focus for a second on the character of Esau, what must be going through his mind when he hears the news that Jacob is coming? So you could answer in a binary way, which says, on the one hand, he's very excited about it. On the other hand, he's very anxious about it. On the one hand, he would love to see his brother again. On the other hand, he wants to kill him. And so we have to find the way to navigate in this emotional and psychological mix as best as we can. And the story has to find a way to convey that to us. And I would add, that that's where the mirror of life is, which is when families have had falling outs, and this happens, in many families, not all. I would say the lucky families are lucky. Families that are lucky are lucky in the sense that all the siblings are able to kind of coalesce and be together on certain things. But as a congregational rabbi, I have more than enough experience with sibling conflict, especially on the passing of a parent, where the siblings come together, to attend to their deceased parent, but afterwards there's tremendous friction between them, such that they won't even talk to each other, that the funeral is just the time that they'll come together. And these things, originate from sometimes very serious things to the most, benign, ridiculous, trivial things. Sometimes it's of course, based on inheritance and money, and maybe, the attitude of a parent towards a child, towards one or the other, which injects a certain kind of acrimony in the family system. And sometimes it has to do with the fact that just one of the siblings is mean to the other and vindictive, and they hold grudges, and they last the entire life of that individual. And so these are not experiences that are unknown to us. We recognize this. And so we have here, we're trying. If I had to interview Asaph, which I would do for a skit, I would ask him in a kind of Oprah setting, what was going through your mind at this time? So what do and my case is that I I if I'm Asaph, I would answer on I I'm confused. Asaph as a character is where I feel very sympathetic to him because he has there, he's a character that that is wronged, that is victimized by his brother, that is very kind of simple and direct and emotional and impulsive, and is prone to impulsive acts and prone to behavior. And yet, look at him. He's become quite accomplished. He has 400 followers. He's got a gang of people with him. Um, and so, what does that mean? And so, on the one hand, we have, this excitement, possibly. I'm going to see my brother. On the other hand, we have it's time, payback, time for payback now. Okay, any comments on this? We'll go on. Okay, all right, here we go. So he says, Foran, Yaakov reacts and says, Vayira Yaakov me'od. He's afraid. He's afraid at the arba me'ot ish. Vayetzer lo. And he was distressed. Vayachatz et ha'am asher ito. Et hatzon ve'et habakar v'agmalim l'shnei machanot. He divides the people that are with him and the sheep and the oxen and the camels and the two camp into two camps. It's interesting, so interesting the way the Torah kind of uses the word and focuses not on the family. Susie pointed that out already, but we get more concentration on the flock, the sheep, the cattle, the camels. Right, so he's going to divide it, and he says to himself, "Im yavo Esav el hamachaneh achat, v'yikau." Should Esav come against the one camp and strike it, the camp that is left will be a remnant that escapes. Vayomer Yaakov. All right, we'll stop there for a second. You'll pray there. I want to ask you, what do you think of this strategy here? He divides his retinue into two camps, so that if the attack comes on one, the other one will save. Now, so I'm asking, I don't know how I feel about that as a strategy. I think like you, maybe the preemption here is a preemption that based on your assumption, one half of your family is going to be killed and destroyed. Why wouldn't you want to save the entire camp? Why wouldn't you want to put everyone behind you? Right? And so, I mean, how would you reconcile this? How would you kind of understand it? What would be your interpretation, or what is he trying to do here? I mean, it's like saying, I'm going to put the president on one plane, the vice president on another plane. So if one plane goes down, at least we'll have a vice president. I know people who used to travel like that. They used to split their families up. Put one, when they fly a long distance, they put one part of the family on one plane and another part on another plane in case. And so, my reaction to that is, on the one hand, okay, that sounds reasonable. That sounds, smart. On the other hand, it sounds really silly because what you're saying is that either we survive as a fraction, or not, and or it's like, let's survive as a fraction, okay? And when the survivor is not necessarily going to be able to survive without the others. I don't know. How do you feel about this? What do you
Hills
think?
and rats always never flew together.
They never flew together for that very reason.
Yeah. And
Stanley,
that had something to do perhaps with the fact that they were both survivors of the Holocaust.
possibly, and that could frame the experience. Stanley, go ahead.
Well, I just see it as his effort to cut his losses. That is better to have half the family survive than none of them, assuming that um, the half that he is sending wherever would be safe. I don't know if that's a good assumption or not. I mean, if Aesop was really determined, I suppose he could go after everyone, right? But maybe there's a better chance, at least, of saving half of his family this way. So I don't, I mean, it's devil's choice here, but I think it's reasonable.
So okay, so I honestly I don't understand the I'm not sure if I understand the mechanism, okay? Because the alternative could it be I'm just not gonna I'm not gonna go I'm not going to go on this journey. I'll retreat a little bit, right? Why should I lose everyone? I mean, after all, Rebecca said kind of the same thing. It's like I want I want you to run away because why should I lose two sons in the same time? She says that because Yaakov is now vulnerable. Esav will kill him, and someone will avenge Esav by killing Esav. So it's an all or nothing, and in some ways it needs a much finer reconciliation. I think it needs a much finer analysis. I'm not able to provide that. Because I'm at least I'll give it this try, which is kind of the theme, which is that there's an ambiguity in that strategy because there's an ambiguity in the way that he receives the message, and he's not sure about the message. And now we'll go back to that in the text, because the text itself leads you to be ambiguity. So he says as follows. I'm
But
go back to just as
how do you decide which order to divide the people?
exactly. I mean that would be one of the the more pragmatic. So I want to just focus back on the what the messenger. He sends these delegates, okay, right? Messengers to Esav. Okay, so the fact that he's able to send them and that they're able to come back and they're able to come back without being harmed. I'll close the second verse. It seems that that's just a regular diplomatic kind of interaction, right? Imagine like this, okay? You know, so we have this new situation between Syria and the world, okay? And Syria, imagine if Israel on the new day that literally exists right this moment sends a group of emissaries to Damascus and say, "We'd like to talk to whoever's in charge here, because we'd like to make peace with Syria," and they send directly. Okay, so the question is, what do you think is going to happen if Israelis send them? They'll they'll get they'll be imprisoned, they'll be captured, they'll be because there's no relationship here. This in a way doesn't make sense to me. Or what makes sense to me is that if Jacob is dispatching emissaries to Esav and they return, that means that there's no hostility here because they weren't harmed. So he has to decode from this a certain kind of message in that his emissaries return without having been harmed. Okay? Think about it like this. I mean, we have in a couple of weeks we'll have a scene where the brothers go to Egypt on a mission, and even on their first mission to get food, it's not that they're harmed, but they're incarcerated. They're imprisoned for a few minutes, for a few days, whatever. And one of them is taken hostage. And so, you know, the fact that these emissaries from Jacob, I don't know how many they are, two, three, maybe half a dozen, I don't know, that they able to go and they come back unharmed ought to say something. Bob, go ahead. You have a question or observation.
Yeah, no, just a question, which is if these stories are also supposed to provide messages for us about what we can learn from this, I'm wondering what you or the commentators would say as to why he separated the family in this way. I kind of get a sense of the idea of placating or coming more in a groveling or servant manner, that's a way maybe to deal with others, but what do the commentators say about what message is being sent to us in this generation?
Yeah, to us, I mean, they're saying. I mean, I'll look at the pshat, which is, this is a way for him to save. You can't save everybody. Save as much as you can, and
And
so yeah,
can I
they would
say
look at it.
something?
Go ahead, Tava. Yeah.
During World War II,
Yes.
that's exactly what people did.
Yeah.
Exactly. They would take your children and send them different places, hoping that one of them or two of them will survive. And because they did that, they did survive some. No, if
Yeah.
they had a choice, very few people stuck together
Yeah.
because they would all be killed.
So here then we're gonna layer over that and say that this is about survival, and so that Jacob senses in this moment, the impossibility that even where he's at, he is vulnerable because Esau will come and attack him. Okay, and that he can't make a retreat. I mean, I'm saying that it sounds reasonable that he'd want to go back, but he can't go back because he has to go into the land, and so he's really stuck. And so because he's stuck, and because the sense of peril is so severe, he resorts to this thing. As far as what it means for us, I haven't looked that deeply into the commentaries and asked to see whether or not they actually do that question. It's worth it to really consider. But I'm saying, here there's a message that comes back with Jacob, and that is that so when he sends this message to Esau, and they return, the messengers return, so they return unscathed. That to me says something. And then they say El Yaakov, they go to back, Banu el achicha el Esav. We came to your brother, to Esav. And so they say they don't use the same language that Jacob used to Esav. They call him your brother. We went to your brother, to Esav. V'gam holech litarcha v'arba me'od ish imo. And he's coming to you, and 400 men are with him. So in this little sentence here are three little points of ambiguity. Point one, they come back. Point two, he's your brother. And point three, holech likratcha, is not necessarily a um, a statement about coming against you, coming as an opponent. As one commentator says, this phrase, this phraseology, lalechet likrat, it occurs many places, and 78%, he does this statistically, 78% of the time that this phrase is used, it's actually for reconciliation and for peace. So, to the biblical reader, the person whose ear is attuned to this, and we're assuming that that's kind of being projected onto Jacob here, what he should hear is ach likrat cha, right? That he should hear, he should perceive three things. A, they came back unscathed. B, they're referring to him as his brother. And three, he's coming to you. He's coming to you with good intentions. Okay, and I have questions here. So we have John and then Rob. Bob. Good.
I I think one reason Jacob is in this quandary is that the report of the messenger is so cryptic. If there was a messenger sent, you would think he could report what he observed, the facial expression of
Yeah,
Esau.
exactly.
A better message would have been helpful to Jacob.
Not only that, but if you were Jacob, right, you would interrogate your messengers. You'd say, "What did you see? What did you do? Where did you go? How did you be?" Like, and to me, this is a kind of question I have to kind of delve into, which is why does he take their reaction, their response to him at face value or without a kind of cross-examination when any one of us, under these circumstances would be interrogating the person who comes. What did you see? How did he look? What did he look? I want to get information. And so I'll just say the fact that he doesn't do this means something. And maybe it means that he's really concerned about himself, not about Esau. So Bob, then Stanley, go ahead.
Yeah, the other thing that's cryptic to me is he sent them off saying to my Lord, and they're coming back saying your brother.
Yes.
Are they contradicting him or just bringing a different perspective? Why the change in language?
They're trying to communicate, trying to telegraph to Jacob something, I think. And I mean, my most charitable read of this is, look, we came, we told him, and we're coming back. And I want to say he he sat us down, he fed us, he gave, they don't say any of this, okay? But your brother, in other words, the servants, the messengers, they have an interest here. And they want to make shalom between the two brothers too, I think. And so they're saying, look, he's your brother, okay? You're in this formality thing, and rightly so, you should defer all that, but know that it's your brother. But no, he's coming with foreign people, and so they in a way, they're. I wish they would have said something else. I wish he would have interrogated them. I wish that I'd have just one little more piece of information here, but I don't. And so what I have is tremendous ambiguity. Stanley, go ahead.
So I'm thinking about Bob's question about what is the Torah or the rabbis or whoever trying to teach us about this whole dramatic episode.
Yes.
I think about a few things that happen here that we could say in a certain way is a model for how to get over estrangement and how to get over a conflict like this between siblings. So one thing is you have to be brave enough to face it and say, I'm going to make an effort here. I know there's a danger involved, or I may get rejected, or who knows, I may get killed, but I'm going to do it. The second thing is you have to humble yourself in a certain way. That word has come up in
Yeah.
terms of, I'm your servant, you're my Lord. I mean, sort of complimenting the other person or
Sure.
putting yourself, as it were, in a lower position. That's the second thing that Jacob does. Now, we haven't gotten to this in the story yet, but we also know that Jacob sends gifts to
Yes.
Esau. So one can say another thing to do is to think of something nice you can do for your sibling to sort of soften them up,
So a
to
gesture.
apologize for what you have done, knowing you've done something wrong. And the other thing that Jacob does also later on is he prays. He
Yeah.
prays to God to protect him. So there's like at least four things here that I see that are lessons, as it were, for us. Okay.
Yep.
Yes. And I would say so all of those things apply, including in terms of, lessons for how to make shalom between antagonists. Okay. But one other thing stays with me, which is um, it ever clear cut? Is it ever um, without ambiguity? And I think my reading here is that it's actually always filled with ambiguity. There's always a level of residue that will remain. Go ahead, Alana.
I think Asaph is very diplomatic. He's welcoming Jacob like Likrator, and yet he's coming with 400 people just to make sure that the situation is safe enough. So that's a good way of behaving towards Jacob. One way nice, and the other way like Kabdeo v'Chashdeo.
It's
Like,
Chamdeu v'Chashdeu, right?
uh,
And, go ahead.
also, how would Jacob decide? He has 11 children and 4 wives. How is he going? We know what he did. I mean, we know the
Yeah.
story. How do you put some children and make them in a more dangerous situation, and then the others in less dangerous situation, which is a huge decision for him to make.
Yes, of course. And so not only is it a huge decision for him to make, it's a, imagine you are, the children and who do you where do you go and how do you go willingly to that? And of course, that was Tova's contribution here, which is that these kinds of situations, in such peril, nobody's asking questions because they understand that survival depends on it. And so, we're left with ambiguity inside ambiguity. Go ahead, Steve. Go ahead.
Yeah, obviously there's ambiguity. Jacob is when he is, so he has no idea what Esau is like. So the first thing he's doing, or the second thing, he's sending all these gifts, which you mentioned, and
Yes.
the gifts are to appease Jacob and to appeal to his, what, I don't know the word, his self, his ego.
They
Also
have,
to
yeah.
show it that, hey, I'm a force to be reckoned with also. Because I'm
Right.
sending all these gifts, this is only a piece of my action.
I
The
I
third
agree.
point,
Yeah.
the third point is when he splits it, to me it's obvious. He puts Rachel and his family in the back to save
Well,
them. They're the favorite.
so that's not obvious. Not obvious here. You're conflating the next scene, which is when they do the procession of the family. Yes, Rachel's in the back, and of course the commentaries, are quick to indicate to us why he keeps Rachel in the back because he's protecting his most precious. Okay, but that is, I think, a kind of that is projecting a lot onto the text. Okay, you made a number of comments, and this came up, and so we'll just read with the time remaining. We'll read the balance of this scene, which is so he has the 400 men. I would say there one other way of reading this, which is not without people who advocate this among the commentaries, is that while we are suspicious of Asaph motives, the 400 men are in a way a sign of honor, and that there is, because Esav is a kind of gang lord at this point, he's presented that way, that this is the way you go about with an entourage. Okay, yeah, I just watched. There's this documentary about Elvis. Okay, it's an interesting character, but he always had an entourage of people with him, because he liked having people around him, and so that it was, and of course, people referred to him as the king, and who knows, but all these people, you know, uh, celebrity kinds of people, they have entourages that go with them, and that these are the people that intercede and interlocute and interact with other people, and when needed, they are there to honor other people as well. So they function in both a symbolic and also protective retinue. Okay, they're a guard. They're not a guard. Uh, who else? Eva, did you want to say something? I'm sorry, I missed you before.
You're asking me?
Yes.
Okay, it's not relevant now, but I was thinking that maybe the way Esau answered didn't refer to his brother as my servant, but as my brother, showed that he wanted to
There you go.
reconciliate with him.
Exactly. Okay. All right, so here Jacob became exceedingly afraid. Vayetzelo, he divided his people that were with him, the sheep, the young, the two camps. He said to himself, should Asaph come against the one camp and strike it, the camp that is left will be a remnant. Then Asaph said, God of my father Avram, my father Isaac, God, who said to me, return to your land, to your kindred, and I will deal well with you. Too small am I for all the loyalty and faithful. Katonti mikol chasadim, beautiful line that you have given and shown your servant. For only with my rod did I cross the Jordan. Now I have become two camps. And I've returned to this, prayer a lot. And he's saying, I left with potential, and here I am. Pray, save me from the hand of my brother, the hand of Esau, for I am in fear of him, lest he come and strike me down, mothers and children alike. And you said, I will deal well with you. I will make your seed like the sand of the sea, which is too much to count. He spent the night there that night, and he took a gift from what was at hand for Esau his brother. She goats 200, kids 20, ewes 200, rams 20, nursing camels, their young 30, cows 40, and bulls 10, she asses 10, colts 10. He handed them over to his servants, herd by herd, severally, and said to his servant, cross on ahead of me and leave room between herd and herd. He charged the first group, saying, when Esau my brother meets you and asks you, saying, to whom do you belong? Where are you going? And what do you belong? Then say to your servant to Jacob, it is a gift sent to my lord to Esau, and here he himself is behind us. Thus he charged the second, thus the third, and thus all that were walking behind the herd, saying, according to this word shall you speak to Esau. When you come upon him, you shall say, also, here your servant Yaakov is behind us. For he said, I will wipe anger from his face with the gift that goes ahead of my face. Afterwards, when I see his face, perhaps he will lift up my face. The gift crossed over ahead from his face, but he spent the night on that night in the camp. He arose during that night and took 2 wives, 2 maids, 11 children to cross the Yabba crossing. He took them and brought them across the river, brought to what belonged to him. And I highlighted, this achapra fanav b'mincha, haolechet lefanai, acharechen ere lefanav, olai yisa fanai. There's all the faces here, and what that suggests is that the encounter is the counter of the face. I mean, I wish we had more knowledge of the philosophy here of Emmanuel Levinas, who writes about the face. But it's clear that the face. I mean, just take a look at the Mona Lisa as a face, and what does the face tell you? A million things. It's filled with ambiguity. And the story is filled with ambiguity. It's filled with unresolved but resolved tensions and intentions of reconciliation, but residues of the animosity that will remain, and suspicion and respect, kavod and chash,
Oshad.
bullshit, right? Lots and lots of different ambiguities there, and at the end, you have this moment where he he is overcoming certain things. And here I'll give you one last thing, and we'll end with a little very funny video on this, which is, you know, so what happens afterwards, okay? What happens afterwards is that he has this, he's left, it says, the text says, Vayivater Yaakov levado. He's by himself. And there, an appearance of a figure, Vayavek ish imo, and a stranger fights with him. So throughout our commentary on this, we are always led to kind of understand this very, very mysterious moment as a moment in which he's wrestling with himself, he's wrestling with angels, with Esau's archangel. He's got to overcome the struggle. He's got to, be able to, overcome a hurdle in order to make the reconciliation. It's a really internal battle, all of that. And all that I think they're valid. But there's one little interpretation that I haven't seen before, which is the stranger is preventing him from running away. And that to me makes a lot of sense, which is, if I save myself, my brother, he's not going to massacre my children. He's not going to massacre my wives. At the very worst, he'll keep them captive, and we'll find a way at some point later. But I have to, I have one impulse here, which is I want to be almost like my grandfather. My grandfather, Abraham, was amazing at maintaining his self-interest, okay? And and having faith that everything will follow along. But maybe this is what I need to do now. Maybe I need to find secure this route and then find another way to placate my brother or to rescue my family or to engage in that. I mean, it's a complicated, interpretation, which already tells me that that may not be valid. Maybe I'm understanding it wrong, but if there's a possibility that he could have extricated himself from a situation and then pulled everybody back, which is what I thought of the first place, which is, why put everybody in danger? Let's go back. Okay. So what the angel does is say, no, you can't. You can't do that. I'll wrestle with you all. No, no, you can't. You need to do this. You need to confront this. And so what I would say as a conclusion is that this is the ambiguity in the scene highlights a lot of ambiguity in himself and the residual nature of the guilt that he has that may in fact be put away, be wiped away with kapara, but remains throughout the rest of his life. And I don't know of any other way that the text could convey this other than to give us a kind of scene where oh yes, of course Esau would want to re-encounter and reacquaint and reconcile. Of course he would. Or maybe not. Maybe there wouldn't be. Stanley, go ahead and I'll show you a video. Go ahead. You have to unmute.
Just you're bringing up the guilt, which has been at the back of my mind, which I think also propels the story in a way that here in this incident, what is Jacob doing? He's sort of injuring himself,
Yeah,
inflicting this on himself
sure.
as a way of expiating for the his guilt and what he has done. And it also he's diminished when he goes to see Esau. I guess he's limping or something.
Yes.
Also fits into how he is humbling himself before Esau. So I like the other ideas and interpretations you gave. This is one more that it
Sure.
comes out of a psychological
Absolutely.
struggle that he's had.
All right, I want you to take a look at this. We're at 1:30. I just want to. I found this little video. I thought it was fascinating. I don't know what the provenance is. It's in color, so it must be from the 70s or 80s. You'll figure it out.
There's no sound.
No, so I'm sorry. Just a second. I beg your pardon. Do that again. Come on. Stop share. And original sound on. Okay, now we'll share again. How about now? Yeah? Can you hear? Good.
Yes.
And Jacob lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, Esau came.
This is
and with
Esau.
him 400
Jacob.
men. And he divided the children unto Leah and unto Rachel and unto the two handmaids.
I love the music.
And he put the handmaids and their children foremost, and Leah and her children after, and Rachel and Joseph hindermost.
So this is a kind of conflation of a lot of the text. He's bowing. This is the next scene. He bows second time here.
And he passed over before, and bowed himself to the ground.
That's
7
Esau
times,
coming.
until he came near to his brother.
Look what he's wearing, and look what Esau is wearing in a second.
And Esau ran to meet him, and embraced him, and fell on his neck, and kissed him, and they wept. And he lifted up his eyes, and saw the women and the children, and said, Who are those with thee? And he said, The children which God hath graciously given thy servant. Then the
It's in Hebrew.
handmaidens came near, they and their children, and they bowed themselves.
They're
And Leah
Israelis.
also with her children came near, and bowed themselves. And after came Joseph near, and Rachel, and they bowed themselves. And he said, What meanest thou by all this drove which I met? And he said, These are to find grace in the sight of my Lord. And Esau said, I have enough, my brother. Keep that thou hast unto thyself. And Jacob said, Nay, I pray thee, if now I have found grace in thy sight, then receive my present at my hand. For therefore I have seen thy face, as though I had seen the face of God, and thou wast pleased with me. Take, I pray thee, my blessing that is brought to thee, because God hath dealt graciously with me, and because I have enough. And he urged him, and he took it. And he said, Let us take our journey, and let us go, and I will go before thee. And he said unto him, My Lord knoweth that the children are tender, and the flocks and herds with young are with me. And if men should overdrive them one day, all the flock will die. Let my Lord, I pray thee, pass over before his servant, and I will lead on softly, according as the cattle that goeth before me, and the children be able to endure, until I come unto my Lord, unto Seir. And Esau said, Let me now leave with thee some of the folk that are with me. And he said, What needeth it? Let me find grace in the sight of my Lord. So Esau returned that day on his way unto Seir. And with the passing of time, Jacob came to Shalem, a city of Shechem, which is in the land of Canaan, when he came from Padan Aram, and pitched his tent before the city.
Okay, so there you go. I don't know where that's from, but part of it. It only tells you how difficult it is to depict this because, and we have certain things in our imagination. Of course, the artists, throughout the efflorescence of plastic art, paintings and sculpture, try to present this. It's much harder in film, I think, to because you have to compress so much information there. There was no ambiguity there. There was they were trying to convey, a scene of reconciliation there, to the best of their ability. And I would say if you're making a film about this, it's just really, really hard to accomplish in any meaningful way. It becomes a cartoon, other than when you do it like that. And that's I don't know where that comes from. This is popular in the Christian world. Good for them and all that. And it's always interesting to see these kinds of depictions because we'll never be satisfied with them. We're always going to be critical from like things like the Ten Commandments to the picture of the Prince of Egypt, the cartoon, all that. They all have certain difficulties in their depictions. So this is a difficult story, and it's because life is difficult. These relationships are difficult, and with that, we'll just end the